Welcome to Studio Sessions. I'm Will Donovan, and alongside,
I'm Julie Hamer.
And we're here to spark your creative journey and help you build the studio of your dreams. And each of these episodes, we're going to dive into expert tips, real talk, and actionable insights that support potters like you in launching and growing your own creative spaces. So let's fire up the kilns and let's get started.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Studio Sessions, a Pottery Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Julie, and with me today is our other host, Will. How are you doing today, Will?
I'm doing so well. I'm really excited for today's episode. It's good to see you, Julie.
It's good to see you too. I'm also excited. We are two amazing potters that spend so much time thinking about clay and glaze, and I just, why that one mug is always different from the others. Like, what happened to it? It was in the same kiln at the same time. Why?
It just has a mind of its own.
It really does. But today, we thought it would be fun to share our stories about our own pottery journeys, and how we got started, how we're keeping it going, and our hope is that you can, we can help you find your own connection into clay. So Will, I'll start by asking you some questions.
I'm first.
Oh, you're first. So tell us a little bit about how you got started on your pottery journey. What's your background like? I know you have a background in clay, but yes.
Yeah, let's dive into it. I took my first clay class as an art elective in college. I went to a small Christian little university up in the mountains of Upper Greenville, South Carolina. And I honestly hadn't had a real direction in a long time. I switched my major from business to art kind of on a whim because I didn't want to be in the business side of things, or I didn't have a clear picture of what that looked like. So I was like, I've always wanted to do art. I've never had the option to do art. My high school didn't have any art classes. It was very small as well. So this was the first time I felt like I could have the freedom to chase or pursue what I wanted. And so I chose an art major and started taking art electives and the prereqs, and a ceramics class was on the roster, and I chose that one above a digital medium because at the time it was a horribly flawed thought process. I thought, I'm never going to use digital artwork. That's not real and hands-on.
That's not real.
And now most of what I do is digital and merging that with clay. But I took a clay class I actually made my girlfriend at the time. We ended up getting married. We started dating in that clay class. And I immediately just fell in love with the clay. It was a wonderful way to learn with my hands. And I liked being able to, at the end of a class or at the end of a session, look and see all of the things that I made. It wasn't a conceptual creation process. It was very hands-on and tactile. And I kind of learned how I learned through my first clay class. It was very cool. I immediately took all of the other clay classes that I could. So I signed up for Ceramics 2, Ceramics 3. I did an independent study after that, and I was on fire for clay, so to speak. I pursued any extracurricular clay activities I could possibly get. I was researching all the ceramic artists, all of the things. Yeah, I was obsessed, hyperfixated, which I am good at hyperfixating, but I spent probably 3 or 4 years of college, university area. I'm just obsessed with clay. My other classes fell short because I was in the studio so much, and I would opt to do overnight clay studio sessions versus the other projects and homework I was assigned. It was a really fantastic time. I loved that learning process of finding something that I really liked, clicked, and was good at. And I got a lot of positive feedback from either other students or other professors. And so that was another reinforcing thing that kind of solidified that as the direction that I was going to end up going.
The right teacher can definitely make a huge positive difference in your interests. So
yeah, they can. Teachers hold lots of power.
They do.
They shape lives.
They do. So after you got out of college, then were you like, man, this is it, I'm doing clay?
And before I got out of college, I was already determined. I said, I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to be a potter. And I didn't have any idea what that meant. I probably should have been more specific because there's so many different paths. Like that's so vague. I could have said, if I could go back, I would have set a clearer goal of what that looks like. And I think it would have saved me a lot of years of just kind of like floundering in what potter.
Oh yeah, same, absolutely.
So I was looking anywhere I could for either clay jobs or clay studios with space that I could rent or equipment that I could put in my townhome because I just had a little townhome condo that we were renting, and there was really nothing. There were resident options, but I was engaged at the time, and I was kind of like putting down roots in Greenville. So I didn't want to travel abroad. There was really nothing in the city. There was no like community maker studios for clay. There were a few private potters that had home studios, and none of them were really looking for assistant or help. So I was kind of floundering for a little while, probably the last couple months of college, like figuring out like, what am I doing? It was very uncertain. I remember talking about it with a professor of mine who had a clay studio at his house, and he one day came back up to me afterwards and said, Will, I know you're kind of like really passionate about this. I've got a big yard and I don't want to mow it. And I also have a pottery studio. If we could work out some kind of trade, you could mow the yard, do some yard work for me, and I'll let you have access to the studio. So speaking of teachers having huge amounts of power, like that really was what kept me in clay. And I did. I mowed his yard. I probably took more advantage of his studio space than he thought I would at the time. I don't know if he would have given it to me so freely if he had known how much I would occupy his home area, because I was there probably every day for about 2 years. But yeah, it kept me in clay, it kept me going. He kind of mentored me through that time period of my life. He was pretty hands off. It wasn't like directly teaching, but I was learning the whole time I was there, experimenting and playing, and I stayed there until we moved into our current house about 8 years ago, where we have a home studio now, and that really was the break that I needed to be able to keep me in clay. Because if it wasn't for him, I probably would have dropped out of it.
Oh, that's awesome that you had him, though. It's nice to have a mentor. I still talk to mine from undergrad, so I still talk to my professor. She's great. It's nice to have that guidance and that friendship with her.
Yeah, it's so valuable. Like looking back on it, at the time I thought, oh, this is a nice break. But looking back on it, like it was foundational.
Yeah.
How about you, Julie? Can we turn the table a little bit?
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, I started in undergrad as well. I was a marine science major with an art minor, and my very first semester in college, I took an art class, and at the end of that art class, the very last week or two of that class, we had Elizabeth Keller come in, my ceramic professor, and she gave us each a little lump of clay. We made something, and I still have what I made. It sits by on my nightstand. I made this little figure, this little sleeping figure, and as I was working on it, and I had this idea of what I wanted to do, and this concept with combining what I was working on in that 3D class. She was like, oh, you have such a natural inclination towards ceramics. Have you ever considered a career in pottery? And I was like, well, now I am. Like, if you're going to flatter me. But it was just a positive, wonderful conversation. And I think that class ended. I walked to my advisor and said, I'm switching majors. And she went, finally, like that. Because she said, you've done nothing but talk about how much you love art. And she was like, let's do it right now. So I switched my major and my minor. Didn't tell my parents. Because they were one of those where it's like, no, you got to be an engineer or a nurse. Or, and then they were so upset when they found out at first. They were like, you're going to be on the streets as a starving artist. I'm like, living in a box under the freeway. I'm like, wow. But then I was like, thank goodness I have Elizabeth. They came around eventually. Don't worry. I make them gifts. They love it. It's all good. No, they came around eventually, but I thought, I'll work in nonprofit and eventually work on building myself into the art world. But I was that very last semester, though, of my of like my senior year, I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. And I went and talked to one of my other professors and I said, why don't we have an artist as a professional class? Like, why does it take all of these different art classes? It's great to have the concept and the technique, but why isn't it, if you want to have a career in this area, why is it not focused in that area with business and marketing in mind? And he said, oh, that's a really good idea. So they didn't have an artist as a professional class, and I think they do now
Oh, that's cool.
because they didn't really think about that. But I was like, that would be so nice to have, because once I graduated, I got a job in between undergrad and grad school that paid, for, of course, was paying for my tuition eventually for grad school. But same thing for grad school. They were just like, well, here's the studio space. We're not going to teach you techniques, but we'll teach you concept. And I'm like, well, again, I'm in the same area where I was like, what am I going to do? And I struggled, and I took classes at Penland, and I was trying to grasp at straws, and I was still reaching out to Elizabeth. And I had one fantastic professor in grad school, Andrew Combs, who was amazing, who got me really interested in clay chemistry, glaze chemistry. So we learned a lot from him in that one semester we had him there, and then he went to a different university. But it was so nice to have that influence, that positive influence, because that really guided the rest of my ceramic career. And when I got out of grad school, same thing. I was like, well, what do I do now? So I'd got the nonprofit job in a museum, and I had my garage, which had my wheel and my kilns. And I did the same thing. I moved up to Greenville, lived in an apartment, had at least my smaller kiln that I probably shouldn't have fired in my apartment, but I did anyway. And there was like, the balcony, the covered balcony, the concrete. I'm like, it's fine. I'll do it, because it was just one of those small test kilns that you plug it in and it's good to go. So I was like, this will be fine. I just won't run anything else in the house or in the apartment, right? And that's what I did. I just started small and I just worked my way up, and I, for years, was like, well, there's some community studio spaces, but I don't have the time or the funds, and I have the equipment. I might as well just do what I can with what I have. I can hand build instead of wheel throw in this small apartment space, and I had a table where I would literally like have a board in my slab mat, and I was promote the slab mat. I love it so much. And I just thought of, how can I work small? And I don't know, it just kind of worked its way into me having my small corner of the garage, to where my husband was like, well, why don't you work in the sunroom, which is where I am now? And then I have my kilns in the garage. I have 3 kilns in the garage now. And just all the space with all my glaze chemistry stuff, all my raw ingredients, materials, and ingredients. So like a witch's brew over here. And then it just kind of kept growing, and I made friends. I met you. I met other potters. I kept going to as many classes as I could. I went to NCECA. I learned as much as I possibly could. I have books. I have so many books. I love having books. I love learning. I love being able to figure out and try as much as I can. And I think that what really helped too is pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. But yeah, I still wish that I could go back in time, right? And be like, hey, this is what you need to do in order to get into a comfortable professional place as a potter. But I feel like now when people come to me and they're like, well, you have a home studio, what should I do? And I'm like, let me just hold my tea while I hold my coffee, I will help you out.
So if you could go back and talk to that younger Julie on the cusp of graduating without so much of a knowledge of what the next steps are, what would you say the next 3 things, or what would be like a little micro dose of advice you'd give yourself?
I would say to keep making, keep creating. Just try as much as you want. It's okay if you don't have like a niche area. Just try a bunch of stuff, and you don't necessarily have to eventually, but just try. Just keep making, because at some point in time I did kind of stop making for a couple months, because I was just, even if it's something small, just make something weekly and keep creating it. The other thing would be to continue to reach out to other potters, and I didn't at the time, but now I just try to sign up for classes and continue my education. For the longest time, I was like, well, should I take a class or should I do this? And I would just say, no, just go do it. No one, I actually had the best advice given to me by an artist who unfortunately is no longer here. And he said to me, no one is coming, because he was like my biggest cheerleader. And at one point in time, he was pepping me up. And I guess I wasn't as enthusiastic because I was going through the little lull in my art. And he was like, no one's coming. He's like, you have something really creative, really genuine. He said, you love to learn. He said, he's like, I see it in you. He said, I know you love to teach. You love to talk about this pottery. You're really passionate about it. And he's like, no one's going to come, though, and be like, here, Julie, do this, here, do that. He's like, you have to be there for yourself. You have to find out what it is that drives you and go and do it.
Yeah.
So,
I love that bit of advice. No one's coming to save you kind of thing.
yeah, no one's coming. And he said it so bluntly. He's like, no one's coming. I was like, what? He's like, no one's coming. He said, no one's coming. He's like, I will hopefully be here. And he's not. And it makes me really sad. But he was like, you have to be there for yourself. You can have as many books as you want and take as many classes as you want, have a fantastic system, community of people. But you have to show up for yourself at the end of the day, the beginning of the day, all the way through the day. You have to show up. So I think that's where a lot of hesitation for me as a professional is just that sense of I don't know, there's that thought of imposter syndrome. And unfortunately, I let that drive sometimes a little more than I should. And it's okay to have a healthy fear of things, right? But you can't let the fear drive. You're never going to get rid of it, though, too. Even when people are like, what happens if I plug in a kiln and it catches on fire? I'm like, I say that, almost every week. I go out and check on my kiln. I'm like, you're not burning my house down, right? Talk to it. No, don't talk to your kilns.
We can pretend you don't talk to your kilns.
I do talk to my kilns. I'm like, hey, this firing needs to go really well for me. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of showing up for yourself and really sitting with what you want to do. Think about what you want to do and then act on it. And I know that sounds like, Julia, sounds so easy. No, you're still going to have that hesitation, and that's okay. It's okay to have that hesitation, and it's okay to not have a background in art. You don't have to have a degree, but if you want to learn something and you want to help yourself, reaching out for a community and reaching out to, take classes or read books and practice some things, do some mindful artwork and try something new. It's really, I think, the best advice I could give.
Yeah, I think that's solid.
Yeah. And start small. You don't have to have a huge studio space.
No. You can start little.
Yeah, it could be a corner of your office that you currently work in. It could be just a fold-up table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I worked in my kitchen.
Yeah, you did. That's right. You said you worked in your kitchen for a little while.
I had my wheel in my kitchen.
Okay,
I
thought you had to be like kiln in your kitchen too at some point in time. Okay.
I would transport the pots out of my kitchen and move them somewhere else to fire.
Okay.
Which was its own problem, but it's what I had.
Yeah.
That's what worked.
I have a tray with handles that I carry my greenware through my house, through my laundry room, and into my garage to load into my kiln. And it's a pain. I could just have a wheel in the garage, but it's dark and there's spiders in there. Don't let that discourage you guys. It's going to be okay.
There's always spiders in pottery studios.
There's spiders in here too. It's fine. I saw one crawling around the other day, and I'm like, that's grand.
They like the clay moisture, I think.
I think they do. But it also, I'm in a sunroom with lots of cracks and stuff that I should probably fill.
So after college, you've got the technique, you've got your nonprofit work in the museum. What was next? How did you said set a goal and go after it? What was your goal?
My goal was I was like, oh, by 2021, I want to be working and doing full-time pottery. So by 2019, towards the end of 2019, I was actually doing a decent amount of income on the side. I would primarily just work on the weekends because my 9 to 5 was Monday through Friday, and I do ceramics on the side. And then COVID happened, and all of us I was talking about going part time anyway, which was great. And I ended up everyone else was going 1 day a week, and they offered me 1 day a week, and I was like, I really don't want to do 1 day a week from home. So they were like, well, do you just you want us to lay you off? I was like, sure. I'm not kidding. And one of my coworkers started crying because she was like, I feel so bad. I'm like, nah. Like, I just packed up my office, came home. I did get a little upset. I was a little more nervous. But then it was nice because I have such a supportive husband, and he said, you want to do this anyway, and you're already working on it. So take some time and just get yourself, situated or whatever. And I came up with some goals and ideas, and I talked to other friends who were already full-time potters, and I talked to my mentor from undergrad, and I said, hey, I want to do this full time. What's it going to look like? And she walked me through some things, and it was nice to have that. But then I just sat down and found kind of like something that sold really well. And that's kind of how I was like, well, what sells? And what can I make at least, a good amount of that people will like? And people like bowls, and people like plates and dinnerware sets and mugs. You can never have enough mugs. People love mugs and stuff to use in the kitchen. So I said, okay, well, if I become a functional potter and do this functional pottery and make multiples and practice making multiples, make sure it works out so that if someone wants multiple of something, I can replicate it, right? And that's where I just kind of began. I sat down and thought, okay, well, I'm going to do one of two things. I can either make stuff that the people are going to like, that's going to sell, and then I can have money, or I can try and figure out what it is exactly that I want to make and maybe do some shows and maybe have sales at the end of each month where I make a bunch of stuff and see if people buy it. I don't know, but I didn't have the space for that. But now that I've done wholesale and I've done these other things, I can be like, well, I really like crystalline glazes. I've always loved crystalline glazes, so I want to do that. And now that I have my own little support system of I can make 100 mugs to sell to someone via wholesale and then use that to fund my crystalline glazes, that works out. So, but what about you? I'm using one of your mugs right now.
Yay.
Shout out to you. This is a great birthday present to myself.
Happy belated.
Thank you. But yeah, what about you when you got out of college and everything and got into your kitchen making work? I love that.
Kitchen making, and then my professor's studio.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was drawn to functional work. A lot of my undergraduate thought concepts was about how people are a lot like vessels, and they're best, most useful when they're giving and receiving in good proportions. And so I wanted to live my life like that, and I wanted to create vessels like that. So I lent myself towards functional pottery too, mostly because in my head, I thought that's what people would buy. I could make, I could practice and get good at forms and refine my technique by making these functional objects that also had the practical purpose of it sells too. I think my biggest goal was I want to make pottery, and I knew that I wanted that to be the majority of the thing that took up my time and work, or attention or focus. And so I knew that also had to bring in income as well. But I had no idea what I was doing or how to get started. I saw other people selling online or on Etsy or starting their Instagrams or selling at markets. And so I tried dabbling in all of those things too, but it was probably 3 or 4 years of just dabbling, seeing what worked, what didn't, failing a lot, going to markets and not selling anything because they were bad markets or bad pots or a mixture of the two. It the first couple of years was rough. I worked other jobs. I worked construction out of college. I did mostly handyman, residential home upfits and remodels. I also worked at BMW. That was a better paying job than the construction job. So I switched to BMW, and I was at that point probably the most distance from making um, with clay. I was probably most disheartened. Like, this isn't working, nothing's clicking. I don't know what to pursue or how to connect with people who want to buy stuff. I'm in these markets, but a few things sell, but it's definitely not enough to support my family. My wife was a teacher, and like neither of us was bringing in a ton. We were surviving, and not starving by any means, but we also weren't like setting aside savings. No, we didn't have a retirement account. Like, if something broke, it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was tough. So I had just about decided that I was going to take a break from putting so much of my attention and effort into this art thing, this ceramic thing, because obviously it wasn't paying the dividends that I had hoped 3 or 4 years into it. And I had just finished my 3 months at BMW, and I got, all the formal, you know, uh, onboarding with health insurance and like a salary package and um, all the official things. I started learning German so that I could like rise within BMW. Like, I was kind
Nice.
of like shifting gears really heavily at the time. Um, and one day on my lunch break, I got a phone call from a 864 number, a local number, and it was the owner of Clay King, who said he found my resume somewhere online and asked if I wanted to come in for an interview. I was pretty hesitant, to be honest, because I was like, I've never heard of Clay King. I don't know what this is. The Google Street View looked like a half run down warehouse, and it looked like a tiny little mom and pop shop. I was like, I just got on with BMW. Like,
Yeah.
fine, I'll come and talk to you. So I went and talked to him. I toured the warehouse facility. He wanted me for a sales rep because I had a clay background. It was a lot of the learning process was already done. I could communicate with customers. Um, and even then, after that first interview, I wasn't sold on the job. Like, I was kind of set in shifting directions away from clay. Um, and I passed on. Honestly, I passed on it. I said, I'm not going to do it this time. He ended up hiring somebody else, and I guess that guy didn't work out too well because a few months later he called me back and said, "Hey, have you thought about this again?" I was like, "Fine." So I came back for a second interview, and we talked through it some more, thought through it some more, and that's when I was like, "Okay, let's give clay another shot." And started working full time at Clay King, and that's honestly where I got most of my like out of school ceramic learning. I was solo studio practice, so I was learning from YouTube and like books and whatever experiments I tried. But when I got to Clay King, that's when I got like a community of other potters that I was working alongside. I was talking to potters literally every day, all day,
Yeah.
answering their questions. They had questions, so I had to figure out the answers, all about the equipment, the materials. I taught myself glaze chemistry by reading books in between classes and coming back to the studio at night after work and making glazes. Um, yeah, so that's what I think that was like the next stone in my clay journey, was getting a job at Clay King and kind of reinvesting back into clay world.
That's great how that worked out, though.
It was
It really
just
has just completely different jump, and here you are now, full-time potter, super successful. I want to say very successful. You were very successful to me. I mean, I look at your work, I mean, especially social media, whenever someone talks about like their presence and marketing themselves and making beautiful videos, we're like, Will Donovan has it.
oh, sometimes I get so in my head about how things are going or not going compared to how I want them to that I don't know. You're your own worst critic, but thank you for the kind words.
I, you know, when I get questions from people too about starting studio space, it can be I mean, obviously, it's going to be a challenge, and there's challenges throughout. having your own pottery studio and working at home or working wherever. But yeah, back to having that community, it really does make a difference. It really, really does. Even if you can't find a local community like clay studio or an art center near you that has classes, even just an online working with people, I mean, that's kind of it's really makes a difference though to have people you can go to and be like, hey, what do you think about this, or have you tried this, or whatever it may be. So
Yeah, you're right. I mean, just people to bounce things off of, share encouragement with, gather feedback. It's all crucial.
well, now that you are where you are,
Mhm.
what advice would you give to someone who is interested in finding their own connection through their, beginning their pottery journey and where they want to go?
I would say be very specific about what you want and do everything you can in that direction. I think a lot of where I went wrong is not being clear on what I wanted, aside from I want to work with clay. But that didn't give me a very clear direction other than work with clay. Well, how? What does that look like? How do I put myself out there or find something that people want to buy? How do I blend what people want to buy with what I want to create? It was yeah, I kind of drifted, even in the clay world, drifted aimlessly for a long time just because it didn't have very clear goals. So I think if I could go back and talk to myself, it would be very clear on what you want and then start working bit by bit to make that happen. Even if it's one small thing a day, do that one small thing. Um,
I think that's really important. That's really important advice to give people if it's just one small thing a day, even if it's just reading an article, opening up a new chapter in that book, resort like looking at classes or watching a video, whatever it may be, just that one small thing every day to feed it.
and I'll go a step farther to say if you want to be a working artist, not only should you be doing that one small thing a day, but I would highly encourage, and I would go back and even tell myself, do more, is document and share it. Regardless of what people think, regardless of how it makes you feel in the moment, um, even if it's not for other people to observe, I think one day you'll go back and say, I remember that, or, oh, look at this. Like, it's just a fun way to even just have like a portfolio of your process, or the proof that you started somewhere, but also it builds up the habit of getting interest in your work and telling your own story and having people be able to follow along with you in some capacity. And those people, as they follow along and hear your story and get invested with your work, those people become, even if they're not buying from you right now, they might be your biggest collectors in a few years when something connects.
Yeah. I had a lady who bought a bowl from me back in 2020, and she bought one from me last year, 2024. And she wrote to me and she said, I just want to say that I absolutely love both, but she said, I can tell the difference of where you were and where you've come from. And she said they were like some little quirks in the first bowl that you made for me. And she said, now that I have this other one, she said, it's so refined. And it was the same kind of bowl, just like me learning multiples, and still very close, similar glazes, all that kind of stuff. But she was just like, I just want to say that I can tell you've worked really hard. And she said, I still absolutely love the first one. The first one is beautiful, but she said, I can tell that your work has gotten, it's progressed over the years in a positive way. And she just was like, I just want to reach out and tell you how proud I am of you. And I'm like, what?
That's so sweet.
Like, that's so beautiful. And it was just, a client who was just like, I just love following you on social media, and I check in, like I go on social media once in a while, see what you're working on. And she hadn't purchased anything from me for a couple years. And she was like, oh, I would just buy something from Julie. And I thought that was really nice. I thought that was really sweet.
And I'd say too, like kind of riffing off that, like those little connections, like that's what fuels a whole artist's like ability to create and sell work. And it's as you're documenting and sharing, like that's one connection, but you have the capacity, especially with today's social media and how that works, like you have the capacity to reach hundreds of thousands of people for free at any given time. And as you're documenting your work, like you're building all of these little connections. Like I used to get so hung up about the numbers of followers or likes or comments and feel bad if it didn't perform well, or beat myself up if I didn't have enough as many followers as other artists, and compare and contrast, all the things.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah. Um, but what I've learned is like those, even if there's only 2 people liking your post right now, even if you only have like 100 followers, whatever it is, even less than that, like you don't actually need that many people following or liking your stuff in order to support like a creative art business, as long as you're really connecting with those people and you're practicing the the practice of document and sharing storytelling, even just your own story.
Yeah. You do a really beautiful job at storytelling through your work and just yourself as an artist, and I admire that. And I do get hesitant. There is that little bit of hesitation of, well, should I do more videos of myself? Should I post more of my process? And I really should, and I need to. I do take videos, and I even will pretend like I'm going to be posting them and put together and piece together and edit them, and then I never post them. But then I go back and look at them and I'm like, wow, I should do this. And it's nice. It's nice to just have that. So,
Should is also a hard word to use. I mean, at
should.
the end of the day, you don't have to.
I don't
Like,
have to. I can just keep it for me.
yeah, you can.
Because I was looking back at another video when a I was doing some classes that I was teaching locally, and I was going to pit fire the pottery at home, and I did, of course. I pit fired the pottery at home, but I documented the whole process and put together the video and sent it out to just those students. And I look back at it and I go, wow, that was actually really good. Like I should have posted this. But again, should. But then I thought too, but there were some things I'd probably do a little bit differently now that I may not have encouraged, like my ducks running around freely while I had an open fire going.
Natural selection. It'd be
Natural selection, it's fine. But
there's
then
the
also,
pit fire colors.
yeah, I'll just do things a little bit differently with the pit fire as I'm doing it, because I've learned a lot from doing and going through. But all the pieces turned out beautifully, and I had 12 students, and they each made one piece. But it was really fun to do and really fun to share that with them. And I don't think I think I will. People would like that. People would like to see more of our process and what we do. So
Yeah, for sure. I think, yeah, I think people would probably say they would want to see more.
yeah,
Um,
because I
and
mean, we were going through YouTube, right, trying to teach ourselves stuff
yeah,
after school.
man, Hisin Chin Lin, I don't know if I pronounced your name right, but that guy's YouTube videos, I devoured them
Yeah,
up one way and down the other, learning how to throw.
I just took a class online with Ian Childers.
Oh, cool.
And I was so excited about that because we did have just students we could chat with, and it was fun. He was in his studio space at school and where he teaches, and at the university. And then he was just like so excited about this and so excited, and he was just running through his studio, and it was so fun to listen to him. And he was passionate and excited, and he's like, "You guys want to be here?" We're like, "Yeah." And I really enjoyed that, and it really fueled my excitement too to want to do what I'm doing. And then I have a friend who was taking the class. I didn't know was taking the class until like the day before the class, and she and I have been keeping up with each other, like, how are your glazes going? What's going on? And it's really nice to have that.
Oh, cool. So, in the Julie Pottery career journey, are we caught up, or is there more to tell?
I think we're pretty much caught up. I am now just at the point in my career where I'm like, well, I don't want to do as many multiples, or I guess I almost said practical pottery, but I don't want to do as much of that as I do want to. Like, I want to do more exploration into this glaze chemistry and having fun with that and seeing where it goes. So I'm at the point in time in my career shift where I'm going from a comfort zone that I've been in the past few years to, well, what if I stepped outside of that comfort zone and played? And I have that room and flexibility to play now because I had, a job that was feeding my pottery, and now my wholesale and things that sell really well are feeding the fun if that makes sense. Not that the wholesale's not fun, not that the multiples aren't fun. I still get a lot of enjoyment doing that, and it makes so many people happy, and it makes me happy, and I have fun. But now I'm like, ooh, what if I played?
What do you have a hope for the play, or is the play for play's sake?
I think I want the play to become my next full time, this is what I'm doing now. And as a stepping stone too, because with crystal and glazes, there's still so much of a, not cloud, but it's, a lot of people think it's unattainable, and it's not. It's difficult, there are challenges, but I want to be able to figure out a way where I can show people how to do this, and then again do those videos and be like, here's how I got to where I am doing all of this crystalline stuff, and you can do it too, and finding easier firing schedules and easier recipes for people to get a hold of, and me share it with the community and help people out, because people will be like, oh, that's so beautiful, I wish I could do that, but it's too complicated. I'm like, it can be complex, but it's just one of those things where I'm like, really want to share this with people.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people out there who would like to hear it. So crystalline glazes and glaze chemistry for you, is that a means to a product, or is that a exploration that you hope to teach?
I think a little bit of both. I would like my body of work to be more crystalline or fully crystalline, and then I would like to be the person who teaches that. I saw how excited Ian was, and I'm like, I want to be like Ian. I want to be like this guy. He's great, you know. And I just see the passion and excitement from people who teach, and I see that in myself, especially when I'm doing my videos and I'm looking over. I'm like, man, I want to share with people. I want to share this world with people. It's so much fun. I love it when friends will reach out to me and go, I don't want to bother you, but, and I'm just always like, I'm so excited. What's the question? What are we getting into today? What books do I have? And then I will just dive in and give them way too much information. Just info dump.
I will say you are very good at answering a question thoroughly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's all those years of I have to teach myself. And it was that, when Wim passed away, and too, I was like, no one's coming. I'm like, well, here I am. I'm here for myself. Let's go. Let's do this. And it was just kind of like, got to kick myself into the learning all of this. But I do have that excitement and drive to learn and then teach what I've learned. So, yeah. What about you? What are you working on?
Well, I think if we're looking at the Will Donovan clay journey, I think there's probably one more big stone that follows after the Clay King one. So I did, just to catch up to current moment, I did Clay King for probably 7 years before switching out, kind of like transitioning into where I'm at now. So there's a community pottery studio that did eventually end up opening in Greenville, Hollowed Earth, and I know you and I are familiar. They were customers at Clay King, and I got to know them because the pottery world in Greenville is only so big. But they were regularly kind of encouraging me to pursue my own thing, step out. You don't have to do this Clay King thing the whole time. And I eventually took them up on it. They offered me a part-time studio manager job, and so I switched Clay King down to 3 days a week, and the other days I was at Hollowed Earth. Again, learning and teaching. It was probably like that next step of, okay, I've been at Clay King, I've been talking with people, helping them buy stuff, selling pottery equipment. That I think this next part of the journey was stepping into seeing how a clay business that relied on either product and teaching operated, and then also being a part of that system to help teach and operate. That was big, and it was crucial. I didn't stay there long because I think it was maybe 9 months, and then COVID happened. And honestly, like at that point, COVID happened. My second son was born, and almost like the same day, like the day South Carolina went into lockdown, Liam was born. So that kind of transitioned me into, okay, well, I'll stay home. Old Earth was closed. They kind of said like, hey guys, we don't have a ton right now for you. So it wasn't a full layoff, but it was like if you want to do something else kind of conversation. And I think I was ready at that time to switch into kind of leaning more on what I could do for myself. So I didn't go back to Clay King. I didn't pick those days back up. And over time, I've whittled away how much in-office work I'm doing for them. So I'm now there as a consultant basis in office 1 day a week, and the rest of my time is still with Donovan Pottery. But I think that like in that COVID era was really when I started making pots that I liked for myself, because I had enough of either savings or still steady salary from Clay King at the time to like have the freedom to play, and the world was shut down and nothing else was happening. So I was like, well, I might as well express what I want to.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I started illustrating. I've always liked to draw. So I started illustrating and putting those illustrations on pots through decals. I think that was the first like iteration into the work that I'm doing now, is trying to connect people to stories through drawings and vessels. And that has just grown and grown and grown. Haven't really deviated from that. So I've developed a whole body of work that found a way to produce that regularly, so that sells as a product online and through advertising and social media and all of the marketing things that I've learned while working at Clay King and self-taught. That's kind of self-sufficient. Not really self-sufficient because we have to make the pots, but it is a nice little ecosystem of things that keeps me funded and working, but also room to explore. So I think that's up to current. And then looking ahead, I'm excited to do, like you said, kind of what your hope to do is to teach. Like you have all this insight based on years of experience and struggle and strife and self-preservation and teaching yourself how to do things. Like you want to help make that easier for somebody else. So I have a concept that I'm working on called Matham House, which is like a artist collective kind of next level learning center. It's like professional makerspace, but we're really going to optimize for virtual experience to help as many potters or ceramic crafters learn how to set yourself up, whether that's home studios, actual practical technique of making things, or how to set your business up so that it can fund you to do the things you want to do within the craft world. So that's next. I think we looked at a property today that I'm really excited about, and if all goes well, we'll put an offer in on, and that'll be our first home.
That's awesome. That's so exciting too, and I'm excited for you and looking forward to that. And I know that's going to be a great asset to the community as well, because, again, we have our backgrounds in education, but those who don't and are looking to get into clay, or they're excited about, or maybe have taken a class, or had something in high school or whatever it may be, or took a college class. That's just, going from taking a class or looking at taking a class to maybe being a part of a community studio or starting something small at your own home. And then, gradually taking those steps up to where you want to be. So lots of play in clay.
Well, I think playing, like where the play comes in, like professional play, is one of the most important things that artists and creators can do, because that's what,
Yes.
I mean, play is inherently so unique to what our interests and our likes and our skill sets are.
Yes, absolutely. I 100% agree. It is pouring rain right now at my studio. I don't know if you guys can hear it, so.
I was wondering if my AC kicked on.
Nope, that's me. That's the rain that literally just started. Sorry about that, guys.
But just to finish that thought, that creative professional play, like I feel like that's where the intersection of where artists draw what they're good at, what they're interested in, and hopefully what other people are interested in too. And that's like kind of where the magic happens. I really don't feel like I unlocked any level of direction or like audience response until I started playing. And that's when doors started opening and kind of started getting a direction with my work.
And that is so important too, really. Wherever you're starting, just start, just play, just have fun. You do something daily, even if it's just reading or making something small, working while you watch your favorite TV show, whatever it may be. See what other potters are doing. I tell people if you get influenced, don't just see why. Have a collection of artists that you follow, what influences you about their work, and immerse yourself in culture and the history and everything you can, and see what you like and see what makes that connection for you. And keep a little board or keep a little notebook of what you like, photos of things that influence your work, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly.
But if you're going to start now, start somewhere. Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Next best time is today. So,
Same goes for making pots.
yes, same thing goes for making pots. Have fun, explore, talk to other potters, read the books, take the class, watch the videos, try it out.
Yeah, and talk to people.
Talk to people, yes, absolutely, 100%. So, well, thank you, Will. I think that's good. Hopefully helpful to everybody to hear our stories and our journeys. And sorry again about the rain. I guess this is what happens when you're in a sunroom studio space.
Well, we can't hold you accountable for the weather.
Now what are you gonna do? But hey, thank you so much for chatting with me today, Will. Thank you everyone for being here. If you would like to check us out on social media, I'm Busy Daydreams Pottery on Instagram and Facebook. Will?
You can find me at Donovan Pottery at most social media channels, Instagram, TikTok, some YouTube.
And if you have any questions for us, or if you have any suggestions on some episodes, we're happy to hear it. You can email us at studiosessionsclay@gmail.com, or you can reach out to one of us on social media. Totally fine. I'm fine with that. You can reach out to me anytime you want.
Same.
If you got any questions, I'm here for it.
Honestly, please do, because this podcast is so new and early that any kind of feedback we get, even if it's just a, hey, I listened, that was fun, let us know, because that'll help us make it better.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you for joining us today. We hope you've had fun and you've learned something, and we hope that you feel encouraged and empowered to start your pottery journey or continue in the direction that you'd like to go. And we wish you the best of luck. Keep creating, have fun, and make some stuff.
Make some stuff.
We're excited for you all. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time.